The BSV T-Rex is stomping. The terror of the blockchain seas.
Terrified, Mr. G.
We're going to be laying down some Bitcoin truths, bringing terror to the Cryptard nation.
You're gonna get stamped upon.
Are you ready to have your mind blown about millions of transactions flying through the universe?
Ready for that, Mr. G.
There's only one blockchain, and that's Satoshi's blockchain.
There can only be one.
BSV is sending a wrecking ball into the cryptosphere.
Yo, Mr. G, this is a massive one, because this is not just it's a wrecking ball of 1 million transactions.
In 2025, that's going to be the year of Satoshi's Bitcoin.
I feel like this is the year where everything unfolds for the truth.
That's right. There's going to be fireworks. There's going to be mayhem. They're going to be cryptards weeping in the street, gnashing their teeth.
The real terror is coming.
BSV is knocking at the door.
It's like the Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper of crypto is coming.
Yeah.
There's a Bitcoin dragon.
Yeah.
That's going to consume all these blockchains. It's only going to be getting hotter from here on out.
Straight up.
There's pain coming if you're a cryptard. I should stop saying cryptards, but cryptards are cryptards.
But we are willing to take the bullet.
Yes, shoot the messenger, try. It's going to cost you too much. Your transactions are going to cost too much.
You can't even order a hit on BTC.
No. This is the year, Kage. This is the year that Satoshi Nakamoto is vindicated for his belief that Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling.
Yeah, I feel like Satoshi was the oracle.
You're the oracle?
Bingo.
Because everything he said is already said, and it's sort of like playing out, you know?
Yeah, nobody believes Satoshi. Nobody believed him when he said Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling. And now they're going to start holding onto their pillows,
The terror is coming, Mr.
crying themselves to sleep. There's nothing that can stop BSV. The force is coming.
It's coming hard.
The BSV tsunami is about to wash away and wipe the world clean of all these fake bootleg cryptos and fake Bitcoins.
It's fake.
It's gonna be a disaster, but we told you guys.
Yes, we're telling you right now.
Yeah.
If you don't believe us, well,
Too bad.
it's on you.
Yeah.
I mean, we are really loving it right now. Being in BSV, it always felt like, we're the underdogs and, nobody loves us.
Yeah.
Poor me. I've only got a $65 coin, but more than ever, I'm feeling excited about the future of Bitcoin SV. I'm backing Satoshi all the way. I'm not fighting against Satoshi. I'm not betting against Satoshi.
Yep.
Satoshi was the man.
He's been.
Yeah. All right, Kage.
Mr. G.
Let's get into the show. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Okay, everybody. Welcome to the Centbee Show. I'm your host, Lorien Gamaroff, and my co-host is Kage, T-Rex, Ntshingila. Kage, welcome to the show.
Mr. G, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, and I'm much better because I'm seeing 1 million transactions per second.
Yeah, and it's hella exciting, man, because, Satoshi spoke about this from inception, but seeing it happening, it just proves that BSV is the real deal, man.
That's right, and it proves Satoshi knew what he was talking about.
Straight up.
And anyone who thinks they can take Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin and turn it into some abomination, well, they're the ones who are going to be paying the price with their bags that turn to dust.
Yeah. Mr. G, we joke about this, but it's actually quite serious, because companies are going to, go down. We're talking families are going to get destroyed. We're talking friendships.
Yeah.
This is not just, us making fun of this situation, but it's actually a real situation where we've been trying to, give you the heads up that, guys, the BTC side is just speculation and has no true value to it. So I think it would be quite awesome if you guys ditched it as soon as possible.
Yeah, look, that is the truth. Don't forget that the dream for BTC is just a dream. It's based on hope. And there's nothing else there. And until you actually see some kind of use coming out of that blockchain, you are always just going to be holding pixie dust in your hands. And so if you want real value, if you want real utility, well, there's only one blockchain, and that's Satoshi Nakamoto's blockchain.
Straight up.
And that's the BSV blockchain.
Yeah. And to everyone who thinks that we are biased, this is Satoshi's vision, the only one. So, yeah. We standing there.
Yeah, well, we got reasons to be biased, right?
Yeah.
We are now seeing proof that Satoshi Nakamoto was right. We now have this thing called Teranode, and that is the new implementation of Bitcoin SV, the node implementation that is now demonstrating that millions of transactions per second are now possible. And that means that we are now achieving that very important pillar of Bitcoin, which is scalability. The thing that everybody else in crypto is struggling to achieve. I mean, BTC, it's a joke. They've given up on that.
It's a pipe dream for them.
Yes, they're hoping Lightning and whatever the heck else was going to solve their problems. But at the end of the day, there's only one blockchain, and that is Bitcoin SV.
It's kind of ironic that they're working on the Lightning project while a storm is brewing hindsight.
Yeah.
Terror is coming, Mr. G.
Are you terrified?
I'm terrified for the BTC guys. And it's about damn time, Mr. G, because, we've been talking about Teranode, but it having to be finally at the point of coming to light, super excited.
That's right. There's a giant elephant in the crypto room, the Satoshi Nakamoto Bitcoin elephant. Satoshi's vision for a massively scalable blockchain that is now becoming more and more real every single day as Teranode is being realized. We've just had Teranode now announce some incredible statistics around how many transactions per second it's being able to process.
That's crazy, Mr. G.
And you can be sure that a lot of people out there are going to be quite amazed. For so many years, people have said, well, sorry, Satoshi, you were wrong. Bitcoin does hit a scaling ceiling. That's why we need to have 1 megabyte blocks.
That's what I don't get, man. I mean, this is 2025. People are still talking 1 megabytes. It's like floppy disks.
Yes.
We're literally talking like stiffy disks.
Exactly. Yeah, so this topic, which is the most exciting topic today in the whole of crypto, I'm going to say, not just in Bitcoin SV, everybody's been wondering, is it possible? Can Bitcoin scale to cater to all the world's transactions? And I'm not just talking about payment transactions.
Yep.
We're not talking about Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah.
We're talking about global transactions for every single device, every single person, every single system out there.
Yeah.
Trillions and trillions and trillions of transactions that are going to be processed. Is Satoshi right? Does Bitcoin not reach a scaling ceiling? Well, I think that we're seeing some magic happen with Teranode and that prediction coming true.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't already watched last week's show with Satoshi, we interviewed Satoshi, very popular podcaster, very into Bitcoin SV. He speaks every day about Bitcoin SV on his channel, and we interviewed him. So go and check that episode. It's the Satoshi episode, and we talked a lot about our predictions, or at least Satoshi's predictions
for 2025.
2025 for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already watched that, check it out, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And also we previously spoke about Teranode in that episode, so we are finally touching on it when it comes to this episode. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to iron out some misconceptions when it comes to that, Mr. G.
Yes, that's right. So Teranode is basically this new architecture for Bitcoin. The way Bitcoin works is, of course, we've got the protocol, which we always talk about. That's what Satoshi developed for us in the Bitcoin white paper. The protocol just means the design for Bitcoin and how it should work. What Satoshi said in the early days, in his early writings, when he was still writing on the forums, he said that Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling.
Yeah.
But of course, what we're seeing now is people trying to now see if Satoshi was correct.
Yeah.
Does Bitcoin reach a scaling ceiling? Now, it's very important to note that there's a difference between the protocol and the software.
And Mr. G, I think it's very important for us to highlight that, because for the longest time, I think the BTC crowd focuses on the software as the protocol, and that's where also the distortion starts, actually.
That's right. I think when people think about Bitcoin and they think about nodes and they think about the software that's running on those nodes, the mining software, for them that's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is, again, the protocol, the design, and the software is just trying to now make that protocol work.
Yeah.
And Satoshi didn't solve that. You know, famously, when Satoshi developed Bitcoin, a lot of people who started working on the software for Bitcoin, they said that, you know, Satoshi was a sloppy coder and he wasn't so great. And of course, that's not what Satoshi's gift was to us. It wasn't the actual software. He just wrote the software, the Bitcoin node software, so that he could test and prove the protocol.
Yeah.
But of course, a whole lot of work now needs to be done to be able to engineer software to be able to perform the functions of that protocol.
Yeah.
The protocol doesn't reach a scaling ceiling the way Satoshi devised it, but work still needs to be done to be able to make sure that all that data can be stored, it can be accessed, and really that's just a software engineering problem.
And I think it's important that we mention that because it also highlights how much activity there's been in the BSV space, just to actually adhere to that vision, you know?
Yes, especially, I mean, in the BSV ecosystem, we've got the BSV Association, and they're very much involved with the protocol, the stewardship of the protocol, and also engaging commercial entities and government entities. But a very important function, of course, is trying to develop that software and work with teams around the world to be able to improve the Bitcoin software that Satoshi left us and other developers have taken on to see if that can be improved. For many years now, the BSV community have been pursuing this idea of trying to get to 50,000 transactions per second, a million transactions per second, a billion transactions per second. And now this year, what's so exciting about this year and what Satoshi said to us, in last week's episode, is that the biggest thing, the most important thing today for this year and for Bitcoin, of course, is Teranode. What does it mean? How does it work? What does it mean for us as consumers, users? And what does it mean for the rest of us, and Centbee in particular, as a commercial business trying to leverage Bitcoin? How is that going to improve our software and the services that we provide to our users?
Ms. G, I think it's important we actually check out what's actually causing the terror on the BTC side. So, Ms. G, just to kick it off, what is Teranode like to people who don't know?
When Bitcoin first was released, Satoshi Nakamoto created some software, this Bitcoin software, that people could download and then run on their servers. And it was just really Satoshi's attempt at trying to create the implementation of that protocol. Now, something that is well known, the software wasn't perfect. And the reason why Satoshi then started getting other developers out there, Gavin Andreessen and other guys, was because he needed help to be able to write that software. And then, of course, he disappeared. I mean, he didn't disappear out of the ecosystem. He just said he's moving on to do different things. And of course, years later, we have this character of Dr. Craig Wright resurfacing and enlightening us about what happened during those years. But that software really was just the first attempt at trying to create a Bitcoin node implementation. And now for the last 15 years, that software has been tinkered with and manipulated and changed and things taken out and things put in there. But really, fundamentally, the design hasn't changed much. There's a very important thing in Bitcoin when you have a node. They've got this thing called the mempool, and really that's just a place where transactions that haven't been processed into a block, they get temporarily stored. And then as miners validate those transactions and they start working on the proof of work, then those transactions move from the mempool and then get put into the block. The way that the software has been developed is very monolithic. In other words, it's really like a big lump, where with all the Bitcoin functions lumped together in this one sort of package, this little black box. And so what Teranode have tried to do now, and the team behind Teranode and the people behind it, is trying to now reimagine that architecture or rethink how Bitcoin transactions should be processed in the most efficient and fastest way. And so that's really what Teranode is now. It's a re-architecting of the Bitcoin node software, all the while maintaining the protocol. Just because the software is changing, it doesn't mean the protocol is changing.
I wanted you to actually emphasize that point because I feel like that's where, like I was saying, the distortion is. They feel like the software, which should be running the protocol, is the protocol.
Well, that's exactly how it is with BTC, because they think of Bitcoin as the software project, really. They don't have this notion of protocol and the fact and the idea that a protocol needs to remain fixed to give confidence to developers and investors for the future. Because if your foundation, which is the protocol, changes, then anything you've built on top of that protocol will also need to change. So when it comes to BTC, they just look at Bitcoin as the software. And so they are, quite happy to change it and change functions and change features. They don't care about maintaining Satoshi Nakamoto's original design.
That already sounds like a centralized system.
You can't fool me.
Yes, and that's what we definitely have spoken about before, about how BTC is not decentralized. Because at the end of the day, really, it's just a few people who get to make those decisions about the future of BTC. So, they've just got the software project running, and their philosophy really is the typical philosophy of, well, software needs to change for the times and it needs to improve. As people want different things, well, let's go and start introducing those things into the software. So that's what's been happening with BTC over the last few years. Instead of them looking at the protocol and saying, how can we build software to follow the rules of that protocol?
I mean, that's what we're doing with the internet. We went on trying to understand the protocol, and everything that was built after that, it was adhering to the internet protocol.
That's right. The internet protocols haven't changed. All the web servers and all the apps and stuff that have been built on top of the internet protocols, they haven't need to change because of changes on the protocol side. Those have remained fixed. Now, a very important thing about the BSV ecosystem, and it's in the name, Satoshi Vision, is to make sure that the software that is produced follows the rules of the protocol, but also manages to achieve Satoshi's vision, which is an unbounded system.
It's not like it's something new. It's literally refining the fact that Bitcoin is scalable. So like you're saying, we're getting the software to fit that direction, or Satoshi's vision, in a sense.
Yes, to achieve that vision.
To achieve it,
There's nothing wrong with the protocol. The way Satoshi designed Bitcoin is done. It's finished. It's perfect. But now the big job is, how do we now realize the capabilities of that protocol? And that's the engineering that's going on right now.
But Ms. G, I mean, if you're saying the protocol itself was done, and then we have like BTC removing all these important aspects of the protocol, then, as we have been emphasizing, BTC is not Bitcoin. It's not Satoshi's vision.
100%. That is 100% what's going on. That's why people in BSV will say BTC is not Bitcoin. Because it doesn't follow the rules of the white paper. I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin white paper and you compare that against what is BTC, there is a huge gap there.
Big time.
Bitcoin is defined as a chain of digital signatures in the Bitcoin white paper. Well, with segregated witness on BTC, there is no chain of digital signatures. And so just based on that very clear statement about what Bitcoin is according to the white paper, BTC is not.
It's not.
It's another blockchain, a derivative of Bitcoin.
And I feel like it would have been okay, like, for us to have that honest discussion of saying, this is not the original protocol, but it's an alternative for people who want to be speculating and who want to be pushing the prices. But when it comes to the original protocol, this is it, BSV. Hence, we are building and trying to prove the fact that it's scalable.
And making great strides, which is what's so exciting.
So Ms. G, I mean, if we're going to be talking Teranode, we got to be talking stats, and they've already achieved like 1 million transactions per second. Not even Visa or MasterCard has, achieved that. But how did they do this? I mean, these are impossible numbers.
That's the whole idea of reimagining the whole architecture, or redesigning that whole architecture. And a very important fundamental thing that they've done is they've broken up the software implementation into different microservices. And in other words, each function is now separated out of the main system. And that means that if they need to, they can then scale those individual services in the whole system. So maybe there's a bottleneck on one aspect. Well, they can just go and scale that, add more hardware or something like that. And so the whole point of this is to try and achieve that massive scale. And to do that, they need to now move into this microservices architecture. And in fact, they are using Amazon Web Services at the moment for these tests, because AWS is it's very easy there to provision services. And if you need to scale up the RAM or storage space, it's very easy to do that on AWS. And so a very important thing now is moving away from the way Satoshi originally formed and designed that node implementation software, and now trying to build it from the ground up. What's very cool about that too is that it means that now different businesses or whoever wants to run that node software, they only need to run the aspect that is interesting to them or relevant to them. it's not relevant to most businesses to listen to every single transaction that happens on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Of course, there are going to be millions and billions of transactions running through the system. Let's just talk about Centbee.
Yeah.
Why should Centbee be listening to every single transaction that happens around the world? Centbee is only interested in transactions created and received by our users.
In the wallet, yeah.
And so Centbee has the ability now to run certain aspects of that microservices architecture that's relevant without having the enormous cost or the maintenance of running all the rest of the stuff that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But also very important, and this, is a topic that we always come back to because it is really one of the most misunderstood and misapplied words in the whole of crypto universe, the cryptoverse, and that's that word decentralization.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when people in crypto talk about decentralization, they're always talking about uncontrollable, unconfiscatable, uncensorable, government-resistant money. That's kind of what they believe decentralization is meant to achieve in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And really, that's driven the entire ideology around crypto. People in crypto don't want large entities supporting and maintaining the infrastructure.
We spoke about AWS, being also like part of this ecosystem, like growing in that sense. So how is that a problem? Because we can look at it like it's centralized in a sense, but that's how you run an operating business, right?
Yes, that's what decentralization has come to mean in crypto.
In crypto, yeah.
That it's trying to create a system that governments have no control over.
Yeah.
And that there is no accountability.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like, what world is that?
Well, certainly not a commercialized world. And of course, we want Bitcoin to be commercialized. We want businesses to use it, and we want the world to use Bitcoin. And the only way it can become useful to us is if it's commercialized. Because then, of course, you've got entrepreneurs building apps and services and stuff that's useful to us.
Definitely.
So that's what we're looking for. But decentralization has come to mean in Bitcoin and crypto that we want to make sure that governments have no visibility, no control, there's no accountability. And so if you think about decentralization in terms of that, or those concepts, then just the fact that miners grow very large, that they become visible to law enforcement. This is what has guided people in crypto, and specifically BTC, where they are trying to make sure that the blockchain remains small.
Yeah.
That's why they have the 1 megabyte block cap, because they think that everybody should be running a Bitcoin node in their house or wherever on a small computer like a Raspberry Pi. And because the blocks are so small, only a few transactions get processed every second, 1 megabyte every 10 minutes. I mean, that's hardly going to sweat anybody. And so because of that, they think that if you are now going to be running systems, your Bitcoin infrastructure in a data center or a server farm like AWS, you've now left the decentralization and you're now moving into a centralized world. It's important to explain that the idea around decentralization first was to facilitate that idea of peer-to-peer transactions.
Yeah.
If we just start at the top of the white paper, a peer-to-peer electronic cash,
it's so stated, Mr. G, like before even diving into the actual document. It's stated.
Right there at the top,
Yeah.
peer-to-peer. And so a decentralized system means that people can transact on the edges of the network, meaning that they don't have to communicate through a central server or an intermediary. That's the whole idea of simple payment verification, or SPV, which is defined and described in the Bitcoin white paper. And SPV is just so that individuals like you and I can transact with each other in an offline way.
Yes.
Without having to broadcast our transaction to the network and then having a miner pick it up and put it into a block. An SPV transaction is a transaction that I can send directly to you.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, Bluetooth it if I need to.
Yeah.
You can receive that transaction
immediately.
And you can get a certain level of trust that transaction is valid.
So that means I can also spend it.
Yes, exactly. In an SPV environment, well, you should be able to then spend that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you're always going to have to then sync back to the blockchain to make sure that your transaction then gets put into a block.
Yeah.
Because until it's in a block, it's really just floating and not really settled.
Yeah, yeah.
So the SPV aspect means that you can now accept a transaction at a certain level of trust, like a low casual amount. Maybe you're shopping for something that doesn't cost a lot, or you owe me $50 or something.
Yeah.
We can do that transaction in an offline way. And so that was the first aspect of decentralization. But of course, the other aspect is describes the way the nodes communicate with each other. They all are in a peer-to-peer network.
Yeah.
And then, of course, having a decentralized system means that there isn't a single point of failure.
Yeah.
And so in a network, what can happen is, let's say half that network loses connectivity or goes down, or the miners switch off their servers. It doesn't matter, because there's still a whole bunch of other servers and miners out there still supporting the network. Now, those are the aspects of decentralization that are relevant to Bitcoin. The whole aspect of decentralization, which speaks to the whole uncontrollable nature of it, is a new interpretation of the word decentralization.
And an intentional distortion, I might say, because it was quite clear how you explained what decentralization mean in terms of Satoshi's vision. And it's straightforward, Mr. J. We talked about what peer-to-peer transactions are, but BTC just seems to have all these, meanings behind, these terms, just to sort of like push an agenda of their own.
Yes, and that agenda is that crypto-anarchist agenda. They believe that Bitcoin is so dangerous to the establishment, to the man, to government, that they need to make sure that it remains resistant to the man and to law enforcement. What the Teranode team are doing is they are leveraging the data center, the AWS data center, for certain functions. They're working also with a company called Aerospike, this very, very fast data store or database.
Yeah.
Now, of course, from a BTC perspective, BTC crowd would say, "Oh, well, now it's just running on AWS and it's centralized."
That's literally their logic. Yeah, that's how they're thinking. Yeah,
and they'll say that's totally not what Satoshi Nakamoto intended. He didn't want a centralized system. Well, go and read your Satoshi writings. There's a quote from Satoshi about how Bitcoin will need to be managed and run by specialized server farms.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what AWS is.
Yeah.
It is a server farm.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not doing any of the mining functions because, that's pretty specific,
Yeah.
If you want to do hashing. But of course, if you just need to host lookup data or you want to store information, you need servers and that sort of thing, that's what AWS does.
Yeah.
So again, this is about the whole decentralization versus centralization.
Yeah.
Having it running on a server farm is precisely what Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Having specialists, specialized businesses performing various functions in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
I think that's also where the misunderstanding is, because Satoshi, clearly he had like a real world use case. He was thinking about businesses, existing businesses. Satoshi had this as a world product, basically.
Yeah. For people, for businesses, he in no way intended this as an anarchist tool.
At all, Mr. G.
Yeah.
We have AWS. It's a reputable business. So it only makes sense.
Yes. Even Centbee, we leverage AWS and it's incredibly useful to us.
Big time.
We couldn't do what we do without them.
We are actually talking about a functional world.
Yes.
Where things are working, where businesses are running, where people are accountable,
Things are regulated.
Exactly.
So, what BSV is now demonstrating with Teranode is that, of course, the Bitcoin protocol, as devised, can scale.
Yeah.
Yes, it does require specialized server farms, as Satoshi Nakamoto suggested in his writings. And, a lot of people would say, well, why don't the other blockchains do that? Why can't they go ahead and, redesign the software and have services that are operating on a specialized server farm?
Yeah.
There's this thing called the Bitcoin Trilemma, or I don't know if it's the Bitcoin Trilemma. It's a crypto trilemma.
More like BTC Trilemma.
Yes. So the idea there is that there are these three pillars that support crypto. So the first one is decentralization, and of course, remember, they are smuggling in the idea of ungovernable, uncontrollableness, all right, in their decentralization. Then they have security. And security just means that the blockchain cannot be corrupted, or you can't steal people's coins. that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other pillar is scalability.
Yeah.
And so, what all blockchains are trying to do today is try and achieve all three of those things. But the problem they say is that it's a trilemma. And according to people in crypto, you can't have all three. Either you have decentralization and security, but you can't have scalability. Or you can have scalability and security, but you can't have decentralization.
It's a give or take.
Yes. So because of their misunderstanding of decentralization, and of course that goal that they want to achieve, because they want to be unconfiscatable, they now are stuck with this trilemma because they can't scale their crypto, unless they are able to run it on specialized server farms. Scalability requires specialized server farms, according to Satoshi Nakamoto. But now they don't want to have that because they want to then achieve maximum decentralization. So by having that false trilemma as part of the pillars that uphold their cryptos, they are never going to be able to achieve scalability.
Definitely.
And they don't understand what Satoshi Nakamoto was talking about when he was mentioning decentralization, but then also scalability. But BSV doesn't have that problem. Because Bitcoin SV is all about trying to create a scalable, regulated system. And that means working with partners that are specialized in being able to process and do certain things, provision services and all that kind of stuff.
Just like how business is running in the real world. I mean, that's how Satoshi envisioned it, like we were saying, Mr. G. These are real world use cases.
So we live in the real world. And thankfully, because of that, it means that now BSV is able to scale, because the idea of decentralization, again, is not about being uncontrollable. And now BSV with Teranode is beginning to finally demonstrate and show the world that Satoshi Nakamoto was correct when he said that Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling.
So, Mr. G, I mean, when we talk in transactions, we're thinking money. So you're telling me that's money moving?
No, not necessarily. And oftentimes, we look at payment networks like MasterCard and Visa, and we see that, during peak Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it is, Black Fridays, generally, I think the peaks there are between 50,000 and 100,000 transactions per second. Globally. And so, when you think about billions of transactions or even millions of transactions per second, people would say, well, there aren't millions of people wanting to transact every second. But remember that Bitcoin isn't just supposed to be a digital cash network or cash system. It has the utility ledger. That blockchain is a data ledger. And that has a uncountable number of use cases. We're seeing businesses today that are experimenting with Bitcoin blockchain, BSV, and finding all sorts of interesting use cases for it. And that's what makes it a commodity. The fact that people can use the ledger to provide value to their customers if they're a business, or provide new use cases and all that sort of thing. And only once the ledger is useful to us, once it becomes a commodity, something that we can use and that adds value to our lives, that's when the token starts becoming truly valuable. Now when we look at BTC, really we just have a collectible. Because there is no utility for BTC.
There's nothing, man. Nothing.
There is no commodity basis for the BTC ledger.
Even on the software side of things, Mr. G, I don't think there's much progress, because we've been talking also Lightning on the other side that hasn't struck.
Yes, that's right. They are depending on Lightning Network, which is that second layer network, to be able to reduce the fees on those transactions. So they have a ledger that can't be used. It's too small and it's too expensive. They can't cheapen those transactions. And so they are still in this kind of development phase, where they are like, okay, are we ever going to be able to make something of this and give BTC a real value and rather just a speculative value?
That's not happening.
Yes, and when we talk about speculation, when people look at BTC, they believe that it will one day become the backbone of the global financial system, or a way that people like businesses and everybody will store their value on this token. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what value does that token have? Yes, it's got a price because people believe it's going to be valuable, but there is no fundamental value.
Nothing.
Yeah. So now the difference between BTC and BSV is that BSV does have a fundamental value.
Yeah.
It's a very useful, scalable ledger. Now you asked about the transactions that are happening on BSV.
Yeah.
A million transactions. Are those a million cash payments that are happening? Not at all. There are other kinds of transactions that you want to make on the BSV ledger. Yes, cash, of course, is a transaction. But what if you want to log data onto the blockchain?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to have an immutable record of activity that's been happening on a server.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to verify your data. And so you store a fingerprint or a hash on the blockchain that you can use to verify data in a different database. And also, if you think about Internet of Things, the Internet of Things is all about millions of devices out there on the internet, all collecting data, all doing some kind of function. And if you want those Internet of Things devices to be able to communicate with each other in a reliable way, to store data in a secure, immutable way, they are going to be writing data to the blockchain as well.
Yeah.
So when we talk about transactions, we don't just talk about a payment, for a goods or service. We can also just write data, just writing information, a way to be able to store verification information. A very important concept around Bitcoin is this idea of a time stamping server.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to time stamping something, that just means having a record of something and when it was created.
Yeah.
And so one of the great utilities around BSV is that you can store information, a fingerprint of information. Let's say it's a design or a patent or a blueprint or something. You can go and hash that, put it into the Bitcoin blockchain at very low cost. I mean, we can talk about the fees later on the BSV with Teranode.
Yeah.
But you can put it there for very low cost. And then you've got now a way to be able to verify that information existed at a certain time in history.
Yeah.
So that's the value of a blockchain. And of course, now if you have a limited supply of those tokens on that blockchain and everybody wants to now use that blockchain, well, of course, you've got supply and demand kicking in.
Definitely.
We've got 21 million Bitcoins. There are businesses out there who want to now write data to the ledger. They're going to need to get some of those BSV tokens. And so now we've got a market. We've got real demand. We've got a limited supply. And that's, of course, where the price comes in truly.
Yeah.
BTC is missing that entire part where it's the demand from real world utility, not from the speculation.
Because, Mr. G, I mean, if you're putting it that way, that means businesses, people should actually be having BSV as in now, because, looking at the future, it seems like it's the token to have.
Yeah, well, what we would do is we would say that we believe BSV is going to be valuable.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know how valuable and when that value is going to be realized.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we see Teranode demonstrating scale. And so we're getting an inkling now that BSV is going to be capable of all these different things that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
In other words, the value now that we're projecting onto the BSV blockchain is now being justified.
I see it.
Because we can now see that millions of transactions, in other words, real use case, a real service at a very low cost is being made available on BSV.
It's all possible.
So now when you look at the BSV token, you can say, well, there it is. The proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a lot of pudding, a lot of crypto pudding out there, but BSV is the only one that we're getting a taste of now. And we're realizing, hang on, this pudding tastes good.
More like the only pudding there is, Mr. G.
Yes.
Yeah, because the rest, like we've been saying, it's just bootlegs. They look like pudding, but really...
Yeah,
don't even try it.
Like when you get, I think it's that Japanese art form where they create food.
Oh yeah.
Out of plaster or plastic.
It literally looks like the real thing.
It looks delicious.
Not. It does.
Exactly. And BTC is like the plastic food that they put on the shelf. And it looks so delicious, but as soon as you take a bite, you lose your teeth.
They tell you not to bite it.
Don't eat it, like a plastic apple on a table. Yeah. So, but now, of course, with BSV, we're now seeing that it's really happening. You know, Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin is really coming true. And Teranode is a wonderful demonstration of that.
I mean, Mr. G, when we're talking BSV, we're talking like cheaper transactions. But the cheap is ridiculous because if we're going to be like accurate with the pricing, it's like 0.0000055.
Yes,
I mean, that's crazy.
that's right. That is what Teranode is able to deliver.
That's close to nothing.
Exactly. And if Bitcoin is going to succeed, it has to be close to nothing. If you want to make a cash transaction, especially a low value cash transaction, you've got to make sure that fee is negligible.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because if we're going to be talking 1 billion transactions, the costs need to be justified, or the fees per se.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you are a company and you are producing billions of transactions because you're storing server records or something, or server logs or something, you don't want to pay a cent for every one of those logs.
Yeah.
You don't want to pay half a cent.
Yeah.
You want to pay what you just said, 0.00000. Now it becomes feasible as a tool.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, to write information to a database probably is more expensive than that.
It's actually quite more expensive.
Just in terms of if you looked at AWS, whatever how they charge and the cycles or something. Mm-hmm. So, writing information to the BSV blockchain now with Teranode, I mean, that's how cheap it is. And so the cash transactions are going to be cheap. But now, more importantly, these types of transactions that are produced by business activities that are not necessarily cash transactions, the cost for those transactions is negligible. Now, it's for the first time, a business can come and say, that is appropriate. That's what I want. I can see that you guys can sustain millions of transactions. I can see that the cost is extremely low. This is now a blockchain, finally, that I can now start testing and trying out. And so when Satoshi said, Sir Toshi said in our last show that, this is the year, what did he say? It was like, this is the big year for
BSV.
For BSV, this is the game-changing year.
Yeah.
The reason why it's a game-changing year is because Teranode is finally being able to demonstrate the cost, the cheapness of transactions, and the speed and the volume of transactions. So it's an incredibly exciting time right now.
It is, Mr. G. I mean, also what I find more exciting is the actual activity happening, the development, like the BSV community is really involved. They really want to make Satoshi's vision like a reality, because I remember back last year at the London Blockchain Conference, there was a demo of the Teranode where we actually saw that it actually works, but it having to be like public knowledge now, it just shows that, the BSV community is the real deal. We don't just talk. I don't think anything can beat that. So guys, sorry, Ms. G, remember to subscribe, remember to show some love. Your granny, your dog, whoever, just plug them with the Centbee Show, yeah? Remember to subscribe, show some love, yeah? Mobile money on fire.
Yeah, so there's never been a time now in Bitcoin to be more excited for the future.
Yeah.
We are tremendously excited about Teranode and the work that the teams are doing there. And, we should definitely bring one of the Teranode team members onto the show and they can explain, more about what they're doing. But we want to shout out to those guys and gals out there who are working on Teranode and really showing something that nobody thought was possible. Well, there it is. It's right in front of your face. Yeah. And so now, more than ever, you can be justified in being excited about the future of BSV.
Straight up.
It's just a matter of time before everybody else around, from the crypto mainstream or whatever, starts noticing.
That's true, Mr. G. If we're going to be talking about even, like reputable people like Vinny
Lingham.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite well aware of what's happening in the BSV space, I mean, there was a tweet that he put out and he actually says he doesn't care about Craig, he wants to know, how did the BSV community scale 1 million transactions per second is the question.
Yes, what a good question. I mean, this is what everybody in crypto is going to be asking now. How did these guys do it? How did they get to 1 million transactions per second?
Yeah, because I like also how he put it. It's like, okay, let's forget about the drama, but here's something to be noted.
Yes.
How did these guys actually achieve this? Because this is actually the game changer right here.
That's right. And Vinny Lingham has put his finger right on it. That's the question that needs to be answered. What are these guys doing that's so different? And of course, it's fundamentally about philosophy. Yeah. Again, forgetting this false notion of decentralization and realizing that Satoshi was not an anarchist. He wasn't trying to bring down the government.
Nope.
Don't get misled by that transaction in the Genesis block about the ex-chancellor bailing out banks. And now Satoshi, he wants to bring down the central banks and all that. That's false. That's a red herring that's now has misled an entire generation of people in blockchain. This is the thing about crypto. It's become so philosophical. And of course, the anarchist message has been prevalent. Even mainstream people now, mainstream investors want to talk about decentralization. So it's just a complete red herring.
Yeah.
But it's great to see guys like Vinny Lingham are also noticing now what's going on in Teranode. Yeah, so Teranode is going to be terrorizing all of crypto right now because they're going to start looking around and saying, hang on, why can't we do this?
Yep.
It's only so many people are going to be enamored by that concept of a decentralized crypto with not your keys, not your coins, and uncensorable. I mean, that's very few number of people. The vast majority of people don't want that.
Yeah.
What they want is low cost and scalable blockchain. And also very importantly, and we didn't mention this as part of the trilemma, but we can certainly add it, stability. This idea of a fixed protocol, something that's set in stone. And it doesn't matter how many transactions you do per second or how low cost it is, if your protocol is unstable and it can change. The protocol is the foundation of everything.
It is.
And if the foundation can change, it means everything else on top of it, that's built on top of it, will necessarily have to change. And nobody wants that. So, you've got to start looking at the real important words around Bitcoin and what they mean. And of course, stability, decentralization in terms of the peer-to-peer aspect, scalability. You need low-cost transactions. You need fast transactions. You don't want to wait around an hour for your transaction to get into a block.
Just to buy a can of Coke.
Yes. So this is now the proof that we need. And now more than ever, if you are into crypto and you've been ignoring BSV up until this point, well, now, that's on you. Of course, it was easy to be misled by drama and everything that's going on in BSV.
Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, the facts matter. And what we're seeing now is a new world emerging, a real Bitcoin world, a Satoshi's vision for the world. And we are very excited to be part of that world.
Straight up, Mr. G. So, yeah, guys, just remember to subscribe, show some love, yeah? Mobile money on fire. So, yeah, Mr. G, we're going to be stepping into this week's questions and feedback from our fans.
They're fans.
No,
well, call them fans.
Fans. Okay, cool.
Centbee fans. Thanks, Centbee fans.
Yeah, cool. We're gonna be stepping into this week's questions and feedback from you guys, our fans. So our first one comes from Smiler Z. She's saying, "So cute, Satoshi. Wow, nice one."
Yes, that was your fault, Kage. So last week we had an interview with Sir Toshi, and he doesn't like to show his face, and so Kage made a little animation, and you definitely made him very cute, Kage. But he didn't seem to mind.
Yeah, man. I mean, what I appreciated is, the contrary of what we were seeing and what we were hearing, I mean, he was so cute looking, but the stuff that he...
Hard hitting.
Facts are facts.
So it was hard hitting, man. That's why I found it fitting. Cool. Thanks, Smiler Z. Our second one comes from Jill Betts, and they're saying, great questions, great answers, great summary. Just an all-round great podcast.
Thank you, Jill Betts. You are the best.
Yeah. So our third one comes from Drew Bantic, and Drew is saying, great show. Happy New Year. 2025 is shaping up beautifully. Satoshi's a legend. Interesting. The point about Teranode being BSV, and that basically is just the release of the second component that was always intended by Craig Wright.
Yes. Well, of course, he's talking about Dr. Craig Wright, who more and more people are realizing is a great candidate for the Satoshi Nakamoto pseudonym.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, Teranode certainly was in the mind of at least Satoshi. He talked about coin not reaching a scaling ceiling. He talked about specialized server farms taking over the functions of Bitcoin. And so everything we're seeing right now with Teranode is just a realization of what Satoshi was talking about. This is the incredible thing about the BSV association and the people in the BSV ecosystem. They are not deviating from Satoshi's plan. That's why it's called Satoshi's vision.
Yeah.
We want what Satoshi was talking about. We want a world with low-cost transactions, with decentralized servers that enable all sorts of great business functions, that can democratize finance and do all those wonderful things that the Bitcoin blockchain can do.
Yeah.
And so, yes, Teranode is just a realization of what Satoshi was talking about. It's not a deviation from Satoshi's original plan.
Straight up, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Drew. Yeah. Our last one comes from Devin McLeod. And they're saying, never believe a snake oil salesman selling you oil. If you are heavily invested in an asset and pushing for it to go up, you're biased. BSV is flooded with fake transactions, and there is no proof of Teranode network being able to do what they claim. Show me a third party who owns no BSV with proof of the blockchain stats.
Of course, yes, those transactions, those millions of transactions that have gone through Teranode, those aren't just people going and spending their BSV and sending BSV. Those are just test transactions. And so the whole point of those transactions is to prove that the system can scale. Those are very valid testing transactions to demonstrate that this thing works.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter that they are not generated by real people or real tools or whatever it is. They're not real commercial transactions. What matters is that now we've got a demonstration that the system is working. We need that. And until that happens, we're never going to trust that the system can handle it.
Yeah.
So, to say that it's flooded with fake transactions, sure, they're fake, but they are proving in a very important thing that Teranode can scale and can make Bitcoin scale. So nobody's saying that those are millions of people using the BSV blockchain.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is that, see, there's a demonstration. Proof that this thing works and that Satoshi was right. Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling.
What more proof do you need?
True, Ms. G. And also I feel like the BTC side, it's always, a narrative they want to push. But they're missing the actual point of what Teranode is currently trying to show.
And remember, you can't do anything like that on BTC. So, the only reason you'd ever want to use BTC is because you just need to move your BTC.
Yeah.
And so, yes, those transactions generally have an intention behind them, driven by some real person who wants to do something. But nobody is going to be testing millions of transactions on the BTC network. They're not even going to try that on the Lightning network because that's going to, be a laugh.
Jeez, Mr.
So
that's like, it wouldn't even happen. Like,
yeah.
They'd have no grounds of doing that.
Exactly. So this is the reality that you can cry all you want and you can moan about fake transactions, but guess what? BSV is the only one who's being able to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, if you think that BTC is better for you because number go up, well, have fun staying clueless, because, the writing's now more than on the wall. It's written on your forehead that BSV is delivering on Satoshi's promise of a massively scalable blockchain. And Teranode is proof of that. So laugh all you want, cry all you want.
We're happy.
We're happy on the BSV side. We know where we're headed. We've got a future ahead of us, whereas everybody else, their only future is on Satoshi's side.
More like on T-Rex's throat.
Yeah. Don't bet against Satoshi. If you want some kind of confidence for the future, don't bet against Satoshi.
Don't. I mean, his vision is clear, Mr. G. It would be a losing battle if you did so. Yeah, Mr. G, I think we've actually come to the end of our show.
Okay, great stuff. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion around Teranode. It is a technical concept, and obviously there's a lot of complexities around it. But really, it boils down to the fact that Bitcoin Satoshi vision is now delivering on that promise of a massively scalable blockchain. And if you want to ignore that, if you want to be in denial, well, that's on you. But now for the person who's open-minded and thoughtful and also really wants to add value and get value out of a blockchain, well, there is no other game in town. There's one giant T-Rex, and it's going to eat up every single other blockchain that's out there, and that's the BSV T-Rex.
Straight up.
You know, everything else is just, you know, a little mammal. I suppose, wait, we shouldn't say Bitcoin is a dinosaur, right? It's not a T-Rex.
It's not, yeah.
I mean, it's not getting extinct until the end of the world. You know? I mean, that's what's going to take out Bitcoin SV is a meteorite that's going to obliterate the planet. But until then, that BSV T-Rex is going to be stomping over every other blockchain. I mean, just think about 1 million transactions per second. That's more than all the other blockchains in the world combined.
It's crazy.
So, you know, now it's on you. Now the facts are out there. All right, Kage. Well, thanks for the chat about Teranode.
Yeah.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us here today on the Centbee Show. Please come back soon.